Welcome, anointed ones. Tonight I'm not here to entertain you, I'm here to awaken you. Be careful who you try to destroy, because sometimes heaven hides its generals in plain sight. Every now and then the universe births a soul who can walk into a room and shift the entire frequency without saying a word. Their energy doesn't introduce itself, it reveals, it pulls back the curtain on hidden motives and quiet jealousy. That's you, chosen one. You've been underestimated so many times that even the odds stop believing in your survival story. Science says the human mind can only handle so much pain before it breaks, but somehow you didn't just survive it, you transcended it. Pain became your trainer, betrayal, your boot camp. Every heartbreak was heaven's lesson in disguise. Now the same people who mocked you are running because you've evolved into something gossip can't digest. You're not loud, you're luminous. You don't threaten anyone, you expose what's unhealed in them. Your presence is a mirror that doesn't lie, and most people can't face their reflection when the light is that pure. They wanted you weak, predictable, desperate for approval, but instead you became peaceful, unpredictable, and divinely untouchable. The plot twist, you're not hiding anymore, they are. So tonight we'll uncover why they scatter when you show up. It's not luck or mystery, it's divine order moving through you. And once you understand that, you'll never walk small again. Before we go deeper, I want to thank every soul here, those who've shared, prayed, or simply listened in quiet faith. Your presence keeps this fire burning. If this message stirs your spirit, type 777 inches, the comments. It's not just a number, it's a sacred agreement, completion, awakening, alignment. Let it be your silent amen. Stay with me till the end. Tonight you'll understand why truth thrives where you stand. Beloved chosen ones, first let me tell you something that heaven already declared. You are the proof that God's power can wear human skin. You are not a mistake or a coincidence. You are the living evidence that divine strength can dwell inside fragile flesh. You are what happens when pain becomes purpose and surrender becomes strength. True authority doesn't come from performance, it comes from becoming. It's not learned through repetition, but birthed through revelation. You can't copy it, study it, or steal it. It's forged in the fire of obedience. Real power is not charisma, it's consecration. It's not learned on stages, but in silence. It's what God gives those who refuse to quit when quitting was easier. You are walking proof that heaven still works through humans who stay humble and holy. That's why you move differently. You no longer depend on applause or approval to confirm your calling. Your confidence isn't loud, it's prophetic. It doesn't need to perform, it simply is. It's steady, born from fire, anchored in faith. You don't chase validation because heaven already confirmed you. Your quiet peace unsettles those who build identity on attention. You don't intimidate them, you expose what's unhealed in them. When you walk into a room, the atmosphere shifts. You don't have to speak, your spirit does the talking. You carry a frequency that reveals what words try to hide. That's why some people tremble in your presence. They feel conviction, not because you condemn them, but because your light shows them what's still dark inside. The glory on your life doesn't flatter, it filters. It separates truth from pretense, faith from performance. And that's why imitation never works. They can copy your tone, your gestures, even your words, but they can't copy your weight, because your anointing came through crushing. It came from nights when you cried alone, seasons when silence was your only teacher. You didn't study this authority, you became it through pain. That's the difference. God didn't train you in comfort, He trained you in fire. Every scar became scripture written on your soul. See, heaven hides its generals in plain sight. It shapes them in obscurity until they carry weight that no spotlight can imitate. When you finally step forward, it's not performance, it's presence. You don't speak to be heard, you speak because heaven moves through your voice. That's divine authority when your life becomes a sermon without needing a microphone. You are dangerous not because you're strong, but because your strength comes from surrender. You're powerful not because of what you say, but because of what you've survived. Your pain became prophecy. Your silence became strategy. Every moment you thought was breaking, you was building the foundation for the power you now carry. And this power doesn't need noise. It doesn't beg for validation. It doesn't compete. It simply commands. When you walk in alignment with God, you don't have to shout. You can whisper and mountains move. You can pray quietly and storms obey. Heaven responds not to volume, but to authenticity. That's why when you speak, it feels like more than words. It feels like weight. Some people feel drawn to you. Others feel exposed by you. That's the paradox of divine presence. It attracts the humble and agitates the proud. You don't need to defend yourself. The Spirit in you already speaks for you. You don't need to explain your anointing. Those who are meant to understand will feel it. Authority that comes from God carries a peace that can't be performed. It's steady in storms, calm in chaos, confident in silence. You don't react to noise, you redirect it. You've learned that real power doesn't fight for attention. It carries attention wherever it goes. You're not trying to be impressive. You've become impactful. People may ask, how did you become this strong? Tell them, through obedience. Because obedience builds what ambition can't. You didn't get here by being perfect. You got here by being processed. The oil on your life has a cost. It came from crushing, from tears, from trusting when you had no proof. That's why your power feels different. It's earned through endurance. Don't mistake humility for weakness. Even Jesus washed feet before he conquered death. Power without humility becomes pride, but power with surrender becomes glory. And that's what rests on you now, glory. That doesn't brag, it breathes. You don't chase fame, you carry fire. You don't crave status. You walk in spirit. You are not trying to be known. You are known by heaven. When heaven anoints you, it authorizes your movement. Every step you take echoes with purpose. When you speak, it's not performance, it's partnership. God moves through your breath, through your courage, through your choices. That's why no one can replicate you. They can copy your words, but not your walk. They can mimic your gestures, but not your grace. Because what you carry wasn't handed down, it was handed over from heaven. So hear me, you don't need to explain yourself to anyone. The evidence is already visible. When you pray, peace comes. When you show up, truth rises. When you speak, heaven confirms. That's not arrogance, it's alignment. You are a living contract between divinity and humanity. You carry heaven's signature in your spirit. And if you've ever wondered why your presence makes some people uneasy, it's because your spirit reminds them of what they could be if they stop pretending. You reveal possibilities they aren't ready to face. You make excuses crumble. That's the cost of carrying truth. It exposes lies just by existing. So don't shrink. Don't dim down to make others comfortable. You weren't made to blend in, you were made to break patterns. You are heaven's evidence that God still speaks, still heals, still moves through willing hearts. Every step you take declares that his power isn't locked in temples or titles, it walks in you. You are not just a believer, you are a carrier. You don't just talk about faith, you embody it. You are not waiting for revival, you are revival in motion. When people encounter you, they should feel God's fingerprints. That's how powerful your calling is. So remember this, when you open your mouth, heaven listens. When you move, darkness trembles. When you stand in truth, truth stands taller through you. You don't have to prove God's power. You are God's power in motion. You are the proof that the Almighty still walks through humanity. The proof that holiness can live inside wounds. The proof that light can rise from ashes. You are divine evidence, flesh carrying fire. Walk in that truth, chosen one. Stand tall. Because when you stand, truth itself stands with you. Second chosen ones. You threaten the ecosystem of lies. Your authenticity is not just admirable, it's disruptive. When you walk into a room built on illusions, truth doesn't ask for permission. It simply arrives. And everything false starts to tremble. You don't have to expose people with your words. Your presence does it for you. Because when you carry the light of God, darkness can't pretend to be comfortable anymore. Most people don't actually live in truth. They live in stories they've invented to protect their image. They tell themselves they're kind, humble, loyal, or right, while their actions whisper something else. They build a fantasy and call it personality. They perform humility but crave attention, speak of love but move in envy, preach peace but stir division. It's not always malicious, it's survival. But survival built on self-deception is still a slow death. Then you came along and your authenticity started breaking the illusion. You didn't even mean to do it. You were just being real. You weren't trying to expose anyone, but light always exposes what darkness hides. When truth enters a space, lies lose oxygen. That's why some people pull away from you suddenly. It's not that you offended them. It's that your presence made it impossible for them to keep pretending. You've walked through enough pain that you don't need to lie to yourself anymore. You faced your fears, your flaws, your failures, and you found freedom there. That's what makes you powerful. Not perfection, but honesty. You've learned that pretending doesn't protect peace, it poisons it. You no longer wear masks to fit into fragile systems. You'd rather stand alone in truth than be celebrated in deceit. That's why your energy feels rare, because it's real. When people meet you, they encounter something they don't recognize anymore: transparency. They can't understand why you don't play their games, why you won't gossip, why you won't bend your truth to keep their comfort. But that's what divine maturity looks like. You've outgrown the need to perform. You don't need validation to prove your value. You don't manipulate to be loved. You don't flatter to belong. You are enough as you are. And let me tell you, truth like that doesn't just shine, it shakes. It shakes the foundations built on denial. It exposes the architecture of insecurity. People who've built their identity around appearance can't handle someone whose authenticity is effortless. You reveal the difference between what's real and what's rehearsed. You don't even have to say much. Your silence speaks. Your peace preaches. Your integrity becomes the mirror that reveals what others are running from. That's why they'll call you arrogant, cold, or different. It's easier to label you than to face themselves. It's easier to criticize what confronts their comfort than to change what's broken within. You don't fit into their cycle of gossip, manipulation, and false humility, and because you refuse to feed it, that system begins to starve. See, the currency of lies is attention. The economy of deceit needs participation, but you stopped investing. You no longer pay rent in spaces where your soul can't breathe. When you withdrew your energy, their illusions began to collapse. The mask started slipping, the stories stopped making sense. You didn't have to expose anyone. Your refusal to participate was enough. That's what truth does. It doesn't fight to win, it simply reveals. It stands still and every false thing crumbles around it. That's the power of authenticity. It dismantles what manipulation builds. You've become a living rebuke to deception, not because you're judgmental, but because you're genuine. You've been through too much to pretend. You've cried too hard to act. You've healed too deeply to perform. The peace you carry is not passive, it's confrontational in the holiest way. It forces everything false to make a decision, transform, or flee. And most people, when faced with truth, choose to run, but don't mistake their distance for your isolation. It's protection. God removes access when purity enters the picture. Some connections can't survive honesty. Some relationships only thrive in dysfunction. You didn't lose them, You were liberated from them. The light on your life didn't just attract good things, it exposed what was never aligned in the first place. You didn't break their trust by being truthful. They broke the illusion by being false. You live differently now. You've learned that peace is not found in pretending everything's fine. It's found in walking in truth, even when it's lonely. You no longer respond to manipulation. You don't take the bait of guilt or fear. You've learned that saying no doesn't make you cruel. It makes you clear. You've realized that being kind doesn't mean being blind. You can love people and still refuse to participate in their chaos. That's discernment. That's strength. That's spiritual maturity. And here's the beautiful paradox. Your truth makes you both misunderstood and magnetic. The wrong people leave, the right ones are drawn to your light. The ones who fear exposure will talk about you. The ones who crave freedom will find you. You become a mirror for both conviction and clarity, and that's what makes you dangerous, not because you hurt people, but because you heal through honesty. You invite transformation simply by existing as proof that it's possible. Some will envy it, others will be inspired by it, but all will be affected by it. Because truth doesn't need marketing, it manifests. It moves quietly, steadily, dismantling falsehood without a single shout. That's why your walk feels heavy. Sometimes you're carrying a frequency the world isn't used to hearing anymore. You are the sound of sincerity in a generation addicted to performance. And make no mistake, the enemy fears authenticity more than talent, because talent can entertain, but truth can liberate. Lies build cages, truth breaks them. That's why the warfare around your honesty has been so intense. The enemy tried to make you doubt your discernment, tried to convince you that your boundaries were bitterness, tried to make you apologize for being real, but you didn't fold. You stayed true. You kept walking even when it cost you company. Now look at you, stronger, quieter, more grounded. You no longer chase closure, you create peace. You no longer beg to be understood. You rest in being aligned. You've learned that truth doesn't need defenders, it defends itself. And when it does, everything false collapses under its own weight. So let me tell you tonight, you are not just honest, you are holy. You are not just real, you are refined. Your authenticity isn't rebellion, it's restoration. The Spirit of God inside you refuses to partner with deception, and that's why you can't stomach fake anymore. You were designed to operate in truth, to breathe integrity, to stand as a living rebuke to every lie that tries to pass for light. And when you walk like that, the world can't help but react. Some will run, some will repent, some will be reborn, but all will remember the presence of the one who carried truth without compromise. You don't have to shout it. Your life already declares it. You don't have to force it. Authenticity does the work for you. So stand firm. Chosen one, keep your spirit clean and your motives pure. Don't lower your standard to make comfort for confusion. You are the divine reminder that light doesn't argue with darkness, it just shines. Truth doesn't need to fight, it simply reveals. And when it does, everything false will fall. Because in a world built on illusion, your authenticity is not just resistance, it's revolution. And every time you show up real, the kingdom of lies loses ground. Keep shining, keep standing, because truth doesn't need to win, it already reigns. Third, your spirit doesn't need backup, because your spirit is the backup. You're not standing today because people carried you, you're standing because God trained you in silence. While others had crowds, you had solitude. While they had support, you had storms. The betrayal that wounded you became your teacher. The heartbreak that crushed you became the forge where faith was formed. Every lonely night was a classroom where heaven taught endurance. You didn't grow strong through applause, you grew strong through abandonment. You didn't gain discernment in comfort, you gained it in confusion. God took what hurt you and used it to heal you. What felt like punishment was preparation. Solitude wasn't your exile, it was your elevation. He hid you until you could stand without needing anyone's permission to breathe. In the quiet, you learned what most people never do, that peace doesn't come from people, it comes from presence. When no one was answering your calls, heaven was downloading instruction. When every door shut, you realized the door you really needed was inside you. When every voice went silent, you finally heard his. That's when you stopped panicking when people left. You'd already learned how to stand alone with God beside you. That's why storms don't shake you anymore. You face too many to fear another. You've discovered that chaos is temporary, but character is eternal. The calm you carry isn't weakness, it's wisdom. You've walked through fire long enough to know it refines what's real and burns off what's fake. You no longer crumble when things fall apart because you've learned that breaking is often how God rebuilds. People look at you now and wonder how you stay so composed when life gets loud. They don't see the foundation under your feet, the roots buried deep in your faith. You don't draw power from attention or applause, you draw it from alignment. You've stopped depending on approval to feel alive because you've learned that peace is stronger than praise. You used to look for reassurance. Now you've become your own. You used to wait for help. Now you understand that help is holy and already lives inside you. Every disappointment built discipline. Every heartbreak built holiness. Every moment of silence became sacred ground where you learned to stand in stillness and hear divine instruction. What looked like isolation was initiation. Heaven wasn't ignoring you, it was installing you. You've been forged by loneliness and refined by loss. That's why your soul doesn't chase noise anymore. You've learned that real power isn't in reaction, it's in restraint. You don't argue with chaos, you outlast it. You don't beg to be understood, you embody understanding. You've mastered the art of calm, not because life got easier, but because your spirit grew stronger. People may call you distant, but you're not detached, you're developed. You've learned the rhythm of revelation, when to speak, when to stay silent, when to move, and when to wait. Stillness became your strategy. You no longer fight every battle, you discern which ones deserve your energy. You know that when God fights for you, your silence can roar louder than your sword. That's why you're solid now. The reason you don't collapse is because you've already been through collapse and came out whole. You've learned that survival isn't the goal, stability is. And stability doesn't come from who surrounds you, it comes from what's within you. Every time life strips something away, you discovered what can't be taken. Your spirit. You've become spiritually self-sufficient, not because you stopped caring, but because you started trusting. You no longer depend on others for direction because you've learned to hear God directly. You no longer cling to temporary people because you've tasted eternal presence. When everyone else left, grace stayed. And in that sacred silence, God didn't just comfort you, He constructed you. Now when chaos comes, you don't fear it, you frame it. You know, storms don't come to destroy you, but to display what's been built inside you. You're not fueled by fear, you're guided by faith. You no longer wait for backup because you've realized you are the reinforcement. Heaven designed you to be the anchor when others drift the calm, when others panic the light, when others lose sight. You are not fragile, you are fortified. You are not waiting to be rescued, you are the rescue God sends into dark places. Every scar became steel, every loss became language, every tear became testimony. That's why your stillness now carries power, because it was earned in fire. People wonder how you do it, how you keep moving forward after everything. The truth is, you don't move on, you move through. You don't deny the storm, you dominate it. You've learned that healing isn't forgetting, it's remembering differently. You no longer look back with regret, but with revelation, knowing that what tried to bury you was actually planting you. You are not the same person who cried for rescue. You are the answer to that prayer. You've become the strength you once searched for. You are your own backup, not out of pride, but out of process. God built something inside you that doesn't require constant repair. He made you whole, so you could stand when others fall, lead when others lose, hope, believe when others break. That's why peace surrounds you like armor. It's not denial, it's design. You've learned that divine stillness is not silence, it's strategy. The storms you survived taught you stability. The isolation that once scared you became your sanctuary. Now your solitude isn't emptiness, it's evidence that God dwells within you. So when people leave, when things fall apart, when life shifts again, remember you've already been here before and you didn't break then, you won't break now. Because the same God who met you in your wilderness still walks beside you in your strength. Your spirit doesn't need backup. It is the backup. The breath in your lungs is your evidence. The peace in your soul is your protection. The faith in your heart is your fortress. And the God who formed you in silence is still whispering, stand. And so you stand, not trembling, not desperate, but steady. Because now you know storms may test you, but they can't undo you. You've already been built too deep to fall. Fourth, O chosen ones, let me tell you something that the world will never understand about you. You don't operate on permission, you move on prophetic timing. You're not controlled by the clocks of culture or the schedules of society. You are guided by revelation, not routine. Your steps aren't random, they're rehearsed by heaven. Every delay, every detour, every door that closed was choreography. You weren't being denied, you were being aligned. You've walked through seasons where everything looked still, no progress, no confirmation, no visible movement, and people assumed you were stuck. But you weren't stuck, you were synchronized. Heaven was holding you until the right moment because divine timing doesn't rush. It doesn't panic. It doesn't need your permission to unfold. When it's time, it's time. Some tried to rush you. Some tried to slow you down. Some tried to guilt you into their timeline. But your journey was never meant to fit theirs. You weren't born to follow human pacing. You were designed for divine rhythm. God's seasons don't bend for public approval. They break through when He says now. People hate what they can't control, and that's why your flow frustrates them. They can't predict your next move because your moves aren't based on logic, they're based on leading. You're not led by convenience. You're led by command. One day you're quiet and the next day you're walking through doors no one even knew existed. You don't announce your steps because your steps are sacred. By the time they study your pattern, you've already shifted dimensions. What they call inconsistency is actually divine fluidity. You're not lost, you're led. Let's be honest, most people build their confidence around calendars. They feel secure when things happen on time. But for those chosen by God, on time looks different. Heaven's timing often feels like delay on earth, but it's development in the spirit. The waiting room is where you outgrow what would have limited you. That's why God let certain doors stay closed. He was protecting you from premature access. The blessing at the wrong time becomes a burden, but at the right time, it becomes breakthrough. You've learned that not every pause is punishment. Sometimes God stops you so that your preparation can meet His perfection. That season of stillness wasn't wasted, it was working. While you were frustrated about what wasn't moving, God was aligning what you couldn't see. He was teaching you to trust rhythm over rush. You didn't need to chase opportunity because when it's your moment, opportunity finds you. Every delay in your life has been divine choreography. The job that didn't hire you, the person that walked away, the door that never opened, each was a step in the dance of destiny. You weren't losing time, you were learning timing. You were being trained to discern between good and God. Good ideas don't always carry divine timing. But when heaven says, now no opposition can hold you back. And that's the beauty of prophetic movement. It's unpredictable to the world, but intentional to God. You don't have to push doors open when you carry divine authority. When the time comes, they unlock by themselves. What others strive for you flow into. What they chase you attract. That's not arrogance, it's alignment. Favor doesn't follow effort, it follows order. You've been hidden long enough to know this. Truth obscurity is the birthplace of authority. When you were unseen, God was seasoning your spirit. When you were overlooked, He was outgrowing your old environment. People thought silence meant failure, but silence meant setup. You were never behind, you were being aligned with heaven's calendar. When the timing of man says you're too late, heaven smiles and says you're right on schedule. You are moving by prophetic code. That means your destiny doesn't depend on popularity or pace. It depends on obedience. Every time you waited when others ran ahead, you were building spiritual accuracy. You learned to trust divine. Not yet as much as go now. Sometimes God will delay your public arrival because He's still perfecting your private discipline. He'll hold you back to strengthen what success will later test. You don't need to rush your readiness. When it's your moment, the same people who ignored you will be sent to honor you. You don't have to prove your value. Divine timing will reveal it. Let me paint it this way. Heaven's timing is like an orchestra. Every note, every pause, every rise and rest exists for a reason. When you trust the conductor, you don't have to fear the silence between the sounds. Because when the music resumes, it's always right on cue. That's what your life has been. A divine symphony. Every season of waiting was tuning your instrument. Every heartbreak adjusted your harmony. Every delay refined your rhythm. So now when you move with weight. You move with authority. Doors open not because you knock louder, but because you carry a key that fits the divine sequence. Opportunities chase you down because heaven already issued your clearance. Your name begins to appear in rooms you've never stepped in because your obedience has already gone ahead of you. That's prophetic timing. It doesn't need to fight for position. It creates position. It doesn't compete for spotlight. It is the light that reveals the way forward. You're not unpredictable. You're prophetic. You're not inconsistent. You're instructed. You move. When heaven says move, and when that command comes, no force on earth can stop the unfolding. Some will call you mysterious. Some will call you lucky. But luck has nothing to do with it. What they see as mystery is simply mastery. The mastery of listening before acting. You've learned that timing is a weapon. When others react, you respond. When they rush, you rest. When they guess, you hear. That's why your steps always seem so precise. Because they are ordered. Don't let impatience trick you into settling for shortcuts. What God is doing in you requires the patience of precision. You can't microwave miracles. You can't fast-track favor. Every chapter of delay is part of divine editing. God's removing what doesn't fit your destiny's rhythm. Because when it's time, it won't just happen, it will flow effortlessly. When that moment comes, things that felt impossible will suddenly align. Connections will appear without striving. Resources will flow without begging. The people meant to walk with you will find you without forcing. You'll step into rooms that once ignored you and you won't even need to knock, because prophetic timing doesn't chase, it draws. So if you're in a season of pause right now, don't despair. You're not behind schedule. You're in sync with the Spirit. The delays you feel are not denials. They're divine calibrations. Heaven is preparing the stage so that when you step out, everything fits. Because when God says, now doors open without struggle, paths clear without permission, opportunities bow to purpose. You don't need to push or prove. You just need to flow. The rhythm of grace will carry you farther than striving ever could. Remember this, when the time is right, you won't have to chase what's yours. It will find you because it's been waiting for your obedience to align with heaven's order. You're not late. You're not forgotten. You're right on divine time. You don't operate on permission. You move on prophetic timing. And when that timing meets your readiness, Nothing, no person, no system, no gate can stand closed before you. Fifth anointed ones, you carry an ancient authority that cannot be imitated. What rests on you wasn't built in classrooms or borrowed from others. It was forged through legacy, warfare, and pain. This mantle didn't come cheap. It came through bloodline brokenness and obedience. You wear what generations before you prayed for. You carry the sound of victories your ancestors never lived to see. You're not just walking in your own strength, you're walking in theirs. The authority you carry isn't something you learned, it's something you became. It's not borrowed brilliance, it's embodied truth. Others can mimic your words, but they can't duplicate your weight. They can echo your tone, but not your transformation. They want your results without your refinement. But what took you years of crushing can't be replicated by a few moments of imitation. Your power feels ancient because it's the residue of eternity moving through humanity. God placed something in you that time can't erode. Before you ever spoke a word, heaven declared your authority. That's why when you move, things shift, not because of volume, but because of vibration. Your spirit carries a frequency older than your body, a rhythm only heaven recognizes. You've been through enough fire to know that real anointing is never comfortable. Every betrayal, every tear, every lonely night pressed something sacred out of you. The oil you carry came through crushing. And what was once pain has now become perfume fragrance that fills rooms with presence. Others crave your confidence, but avoid your cost. They want your crown, but not your cross. But the weight of true power is only given to those who endured the refining. You're not loud, you're lasting. You don't have to prove your calling. The consistency of your endurance already did. You don't chase influence. Influence finds you because the spirit behind you is older than trends. When you speak, people listen without knowing why. It's because truth spoken from experience carries gravity. The world can fake noise, but it can't fake weight. You carry the wisdom of remembrance. It's not academic, it's ancient. You've learned things. No book could teach you lessons written not in ink but in pain. You understand depth because you've drowned in it. You know discernment because you've been deceived by what looked holy but wasn't. Every scar on your soul became scripture in your spirit. That's why your insight feels timeless. It comes from revelation, not repetition. You've become a vessel of memory, heaven's living archive. Somewhere deep within you is the echo of prayers prayed generations ago. You carry promises your ancestors planted. You've been entrusted with inheritance that others forfeited. That's why you feel things before they happen, sense danger before it's visible, and move when no one else understands why. You're not guessing, you're remembering. The Holy Spirit in you recalls what the world forgets. This is why imitation collapses. Others can copy your rhythm, but not your revelation. They can wear your robe, but not carry your weight. Because what you carry wasn't given for display, it was given for destiny. Your mantle isn't decoration, it's assignment. It came through humility, warfare, and relentless surrender. The authority you carry is not just personal, it's prophetic. You stand as the continuation of every soul who stood before you and refused to give up. You carry something ancient, and that's why your presence disrupts what's false. People feel it when you enter a room. They sense it before you speak. Your peace exposes their pretense. Your stability convicts their striving. You're not trying to intimidate anyone. The truth in you just confronts what's counterfeit in them. You've become the living contrast between imitation and authenticity. Understand, this authority without process is performance. You can't fake what fire refines. You can copy language but not lineage, appearance but not authenticity. What makes you unshakable is that your wisdom was earned. It was paid for with pain, bought with tears, sealed by time. That's why when you speak, it doesn't sound like theory, it sounds like truth. You've lived what you preach, survived what you now declare. And here's the mystery: you've been here before. Maybe not in this form, not in this season, but your spirit has fought these battles in other eras. That's why you're calm. When others panic, your soul recognizes the terrain. You've already overcome what they're still learning to name. That ancient authority inside you is memory turned into movement. You walk like someone who's been tested in unseen dimensions and returned with power that cannot be explained, only experienced. Your wisdom carries the cadence of eternity. It's why your words outlast moments, why your impact multiplies long after you leave a room. When you speak, heaven nods in agreement. You don't speak from ego, you speak from evidence. You've seen what God can do with brokenness, and that revelation gives your voice its weight. You are a vessel of remembrance, chosen to remind the world that true greatness comes from surrender, not ambition. The world chases titles, you carry truth. The world seeks stages, you seek stillness. Because you know real power doesn't perform, it persists. It outlives trends, it outlasts imitation. Don't let anyone make you feel strange for being different. You're not outdated, you're eternal. What you carry was never meant to fit the moment, it was meant to transcend it. You are not here to blend in, you're here to bear witness to a kingdom that cannot be copied. Every time you speak truth, every time you stand firm, every time you forgive, instead of retaliate, you reveal what timeless power looks like in human form. Others may question you, misunderstand you, even mock you. But when the shaking comes, and it always comes, they'll realize that imitation can't withstand impact. Only what's real remains. You will still be standing because your roots are not in trend, but in truth. You carry authority that feels ancient because it is ancient. It's the same authority that spoke light into darkness, that parted seas, that raised the broken back to life. That same breath now moves through you. You are not echoing scripture, you are living it. You are the continuation of divine conversation, God's "let there be" spoken again through your existence. And that's why you don't chase validation. You already embody confirmation. The world can't approve what it didn't assign. You've already been approved by eternity. You don't walk for recognition, you walk in remembrance. You are not trying to become something, you are revealing something that's always been there. So hold your head high, chosen one. Walk with the quiet confidence of someone who knows their authority wasn't purchased, it was passed down. You carry fire that survived floods, wisdom that outlived war, strength that outlasted sorrow. You don't need to explain it, you just need to express it. The world will recognize what heaven already knows, that your power is ancient, your spirit eternal, and your purpose unstoppable. You are not an imitation, you are an inheritance. And that's why no one can copy you. Six chosen ones understand this. Your energy doesn't just enter a room, it reveals the room. You don't have to speak for truth to show up. You are the truth showing up. Your light exposes what pretends to be pure. Your peace reveals the storms others hide inside. You're not judging anyone, you're simply reflecting what already is. When you walk in, people feel seen in ways they didn't ask for. Masks start to slip, walls begin to crack. The same smile that once fooled everyone suddenly falters under the honesty of your presence. You carry a light that makes hiding impossible, not because you condemn, but because your authenticity makes deception uncomfortable. There are people who've lived their entire lives behind performance acting, humble acting, kind acting, spiritual, but when your spirit stands beside them, the act collapses. You don't even need to say a word. Your energy does the talking. Truth doesn't argue, it illuminates, and that's why some people pull away. They'll call you intimidating, difficult, too intense, but what they really mean is, I can't pretend around you anymore. You've become a mirror their soul can't avoid. Your honesty calls their conscience out of hiding. And not everyone's ready to face what they've buried. Some relationships change not because you did something wrong, but because you became too real. You started healing, and that healing started convicting others who refused to. The peace you carry now feels like confrontation to those who are still living in chaos. They see your calm and call it arrogance. They sense your clarity and call it judgment. But what they're feeling isn't arrogance, it's accountability. You don't point fingers. You don't call names. You just are, and that being alone shines brighter than any sermon could. When you walk in love without performance, when you forgive without needing recognition, when you choose silence over gossip, you shift the atmosphere. Your very presence whispers, there's another way to live. Light never apologizes for shining, and neither should you. The sun doesn't dim to protect shadows, it rises to reveal what's real. You were made to do the same. If people grow distant, it's not rejection, it's revelation. Your growth has outgrown their disguise. What once tolerated darkness can't coexist with light forever. Understand truth always divides before it unites. Your light separates what's genuine from what's pretending. That's not cruelty, it's cleansing. The spirit in you carries a purity that filters every space you enter. The dishonest can't breathe freely around integrity. The manipulative can't find comfort where peace dwells. You don't push them away. Your frequency simply doesn't allow falsehood to settle. Your peace confronts panic. Your silence challenges noise. Your stability unsettles instability. You don't fight battles in words. Your existence does the fighting. That's why people either draw closer or disappear. Light forces. A choice: evolve or escape. Those who are ready for truth will grow around you. Those who aren't will go. And that's okay. Jesus himself walked into places where people couldn't handle light. Some followed, some fled. Don't take it personally when they leave. Not everyone is built for exposure. Some would rather stay blind because seeing requires change. Let them go with grace. Your light was never meant to imprison, it was meant to invite. You didn't ask to be a mirror, but that's what you've become. Your presence reveals both beauty and brokenness. You show people what they could be if they stop pretending. That's why your energy feels like both comfort and conviction, because love and truth always come together. Don't shrink to make others feel safe in their shadows. Dimming yourself won't deliver them. God didn't give you light to hide it. He gave it to heal. Keep shining until the ones meant to awaken do. Those who can't handle your clarity aren't your enemies. They're just not ready. Your light will still reach them in time. You see, this is what divine reflection looks like. You are heaven's highlighter, not its hammer. You don't destroy, you disclose. You don't judge, you reveal. That's the assignment of authentic souls, to awaken others without even trying. The truth inside you pulls truth out of others. And yes, that process can be painful, but it's also holy. Remember this. Your presence is not confrontation, it's correction. It doesn't condemn, it calls forth. The uneasiness you stir in people isn't cruelty, it's clarity trying to surface. Some will resist it. Some will repent because of it. Either way, you're fulfilling your purpose. So don't apologize for being real. Don't shrink your frequency to match someone else's comfort zone. God designed your light to disrupt darkness, not to decorate it. You were made to reveal hidden things, to awaken sleeping hearts, to remind this world that honesty still heals. And yes, that means some people will misunderstand you. They'll twist your truth into offense. They'll walk away to protect their illusions. Let them. The same light that makes one person hide is the same light that helps another find their way home. You're not here to be liked. You're here to liberate. When your energy exposes, it's not destruction, it's deliverance. What breaks first is what was never built on truth, and what remains will rise stronger. That's what your presence does. It reveals, refines, restores. So keep walking in that sacred radiance. Keep living in that fearless authenticity. Keep letting your light do the talking. The ones who are meant for your frequency will recognize it as home. The rest will run until they're ready to face their reflection. But no matter what, don't dim, don't doubt, don't apologize. Your light isn't arrogance, it's assignment. You are the mirror of heaven in a world addicted to pretending. You don't judge anyone, you simply remind them of who they are before the masks. And whether they stay or leave, love you or label you, remember this truth: your light never loses. It only reveals. Seventh, you've reached a point where manipulation no longer works on you. You don't need to fight for freedom because your awareness is freedom. Every lesson carved through heartbreak, every disappointment that once cut you deep has trained your spirit to see. And once you see, you can never be deceived again. You shatter control mechanisms without effort because you've stopped depending on what manipulators use to bait others' approval, validation, attention, belonging. You no longer crave what they weaponize. You've learned that peace is more valuable than permission. That's why their old tactics fall flat now. The guilt trips, the conditional flattery, the emotional games, they can't reach you anymore. You don't argue, you don't explain, you just withdraw. Calmly, quietly, completely. That calm is what terrifies them most. Because once you stop reacting, they lose access. You've cut off the supply line that once fed their control. They can't feed on confusion when you carry clarity. They can't trigger you when your emotions are anchored in truth. You've matured to the point where peace is your protest and silence is your shield. The world runs on manipulation. Systems, relationships, workplaces, they all thrive on dependency. But you've outgrown that programming. You no longer need to be liked to feel loved. You no longer need to be needed to feel valuable. You've discovered the quiet power of being whole. This discernment didn't come from a book, it came from being broken. You learned how people twist kindness into control, how they cloak selfishness in sympathy, how they use guilt as a leash. You've seen how words can be sugar-coated traps, and how false empathy can be the sharpest form of manipulation. Those lessons hurt, but they trained your discernment like a soldier trains for war. Now your intuition operates like a divine firewall, detecting deception the moment it approaches. You don't need to understand every lie. You feel it. The vibration shifts, the tone changes, and your spirit knows before your mind does. That's the mark of someone refined by experience. You no longer rely on explanations. You trust revelation. You see the patterns now, the sudden praise that feels strategic, the favor that demands a price, the apology that's really preparation for another round of deceit. You don't get pulled in anymore because you've learned that not every hand extended is meant to lift you. Some hands reach out to trap you in old cycles of emotional manipulation. So now you guard your peace like sacred ground. You don't entertain guilt disguised as loyalty. You don't mistake chaos for connection. When people try to lure you back into drama, you don't correct them, you disconnect. Because silence is the language of strength and distance is the discipline of discernment. Let's be honest. Manipulators don't know what to do with people who won't play the game. They thrive on reaction. They feed off confusion. When you stop engaging, it exposes their emptiness. That's why your calm looks like defiance to them. But you're not being rebellious, you're being wise. You're not rejecting them, you're rejecting their control. You've learned that sometimes the most powerful no is quiet. The moment you withdraw your energy, their system collapses. They can't guilt you into compliance when you've already forgiven them and let go. They can't shame you when you've made peace with your past. They can't manipulate your emotions when your emotions are rooted in spirit, not in approval. This kind of awareness makes you untouchable. You see manipulation for what it is, a desperate attempt by the insecure to feel powerful. But real power doesn't control, it creates. Real strength doesn't dominate, it liberates. That's why your energy feels threatening to manipulators, because it reveals their weakness. They used to drain you by twisting your compassion against you. They'd make you feel responsible for their comfort, guilty for your boundaries, ashamed for saying no. But now your boundaries aren't walls, they're filters. They let in what's true and keep out what's toxic. You don't close your heart, you simply close the access point to deceit. And this awareness didn't harden you, it healed you. You're not cold, you're clear. You still love deeply but wisely. You give freely but with discernment. You forgive, but you don't re-enroll in dysfunction, because love without boundaries is self-destruction, and you've learned that lesson the sacred way. You don't seek revenge, you simply remove your energy from places that dishonor it. You let God handle what your words can't fix. And every time you choose peace over reaction, heaven applauds. Because spiritual maturity isn't about winning arguments, it's about mastering alignment. You've stopped explaining your worth to people who need you confused to control you. You've stopped performing empathy for those who mistake kindness for permission. You've stopped mistaking manipulation for mentorship. The old versions of you would have tried to fix them, but the healed, you know's clarity doesn't chase confusion. And that's why your peace feels like rebellion to people who profit from chaos. They can't seduce you with flattery or bind you with fear. They can't twist your loyalty into a leash. You're too aware for that now. You see their moves before they make them. You can feel intention in silence. You can sense deceit beneath politeness, and instead of confronting it, you simply walk away. That's real authority, power without performance. Your stillness is not weakness, it's strategy. Because when you stop reacting, you start reigning. You can't be controlled when you no longer fear loss. You've made peace with being misunderstood, and that peace is what makes you unstoppable. Manipulation thrives on your need to explain yourself, but once you learn to stay silent, the game ends. Now those who once controlled you are confused. Their words don't land. Their guilt doesn't stick. Their chaos doesn't shake you. They realize too late that they lost the only access they ever had, your attention. And when your attention returns to God, no one else can use it against you. You've graduated spiritually. You no longer react from pain, you respond from purpose. You no longer fight for validation, you walk in value. You no longer feed drama, you starve it. You've outgrown the frequency of manipulation because you've learned the sound of peace. So when deception comes knocking, your spirit doesn't panic, it filters. When guilt comes dressed as love, your discernment says, not this time. When flattery comes with hidden intention, your intuition whispers, this isn't real. You no longer need proof, you have perception, and perception is the enemy of manipulation. Understand this. When you stop needing control, you become impossible to control. That's the freedom God was training you for all along. Your awareness is your armor, your discernment is your defense, and your peace is your power. You don't fight every battle because your spirit already detects which ones are distractions. You've learned that discernment is not suspicion, it's spiritual intelligence. It's heaven's way of saying, don't fall for that again. And you listen now, because the lessons that once broke you have built a firewall around your soul. The moment deceit knocks, your spirit simply says, access denied. So tonight, remember this, you don't have to fight for freedom, you just have to remain aware. Awareness ends manipulation. Truth dismantles control. And peace silences everything false. You are no longer programmable. You are no longer persuadable by guilt or fear. You've become sovereign, anchored, clear, free. Because when awareness awakens, control collapses. Eighth, listen, chosen one, your comeback didn't just surprise them. It destroyed the story they built to bury you. They called you names to justify their actions. They painted you as the villain so they could sleep at night. But what they buried wasn't a coffin, it was a seed. And seeds don't die in the dark. They develop. They thought they were covering you with dirt, but God was covering you with destiny. Every rumor became rain. Every lie became sunlight. Every rejection became fertilizer. What they meant for your ending was really your beginning. You were never buried, you were planted. And now your growth is making their gossip look foolish. They built an entire narrative about your downfall, and now your comeback has turned that lie into dust. You didn't have to defend yourself. You didn't have to clap back. You just kept rising. You let time do the talking, and time revealed what truth always does. It stands. Their words faded. Your fruit remained. Their rumors expired. Your results endured. They said you'd never rise again, but here you are thriving in peace. They said you'd never heal, but your wholeness became the proof. They said you'd never recover, but your glow now outshines their gossip. Because truth doesn't argue, it outlasts. So your comeback wasn't revenge, it was revelation. God didn't bring you back to prove them wrong. He brought you back to prove himself faithful. You didn't rise from pride. You rose from purpose. You didn't fight for attention, you followed assignment. That's why your success feels sacred. Why your elevation feels effortless, because it's not performance, it's prophecy. When they talked, you stayed quiet. When they laughed, you stayed patient. You let the same soil they threw on you become the ground where your miracle took root. That's why your rise feels divine, because it didn't come from striving, it came from surrender. Now, your very presence contradicts their lies. Your peace rebukes their chaos. Your grace exposes their gossip. Every step you take rewrites the script they wrote about you. They can't deny what they see, so they stay silent. You are the evidence that truth doesn't need defense, it just needs time to grow. You didn't need to announce your return. Your fruit did that for you. The same people who said you'd never make it now use your name as motivation. The same mouths that cursed you now have to confront the blessing they mocked. That's divine irony. The table didn't just turn, it transformed. You didn't just survive their plot, you outgrew it. They thought they were destroying your reputation, but they were really exposing their own. They tried to bury your name, but they buried their credibility instead. Because every false story collapses when truth walks in the room. And that's what you are. Now a living truth, walking on 2 feet. Your glow up isn't vanity, it's vindication. You didn't become beautiful by pretending. You became radiant by persevering. The light on you now isn't artificial. It's aftermath. It's the shine that comes from surviving storms you didn't deserve. You came through the fire and didn't smell like smoke. That's why they can't understand you. You look untouched because grace covered you the whole time. You never fought them. You forgave them. You never chased revenge. You chose release. You let God fight for you, and he did. Quietly, perfectly. Now your peace is louder than their accusations ever were. Your blessings speak fluently in the language of proof. And what's beautiful is how you rose with no bitterness, no explanation, no need to prove a thing. You let your silence preach and your consistency testify. You realize that grace doesn't need permission to win. Truth doesn't need applause to reign. What they called your failure became your foundation. What they mocked became your ministry. You turned every insult into instruction, every setback into setup, every loss into lesson. You became what they said you'd never be: whole, focused, and free. Understand this, your comeback is not personal, it's prophetic. It's not just your name being restored, it's God showing what happens when faith outlasts falsehood. Every lie they told was a stepping stone to your next level. Every door they closed forced you into destiny's hallway. You thought it was rejection, but it was redirection. Now they watch in silence, trying to make sense of the miracle standing before them. They can't explain it. They can't spin it, because grace doesn't need a headline. It writes its own story. And here's the truth. You didn't return to shame them, you returned to shine. You didn't rise to prove you were right, you rose to prove God was real. Your victory is the answer to every accusation. Your peace is the rebuttal to every rumor. So stop explaining yourself. Stop defending yourself. Your existence is the evidence. You don't owe anyone closure when God already confirmed your calling. Let your life speak. Let your fruit finish the conversation, because the greatest clapback is elevation. The best response is transformation, and the most powerful testimony is peace. You are the living contradiction to every false prophecy spoken over you. You are the evidence that grace never loses. The story they wrote is gone. The narrative they built has fallen, and the one they buried has bloomed. They wanted you forgotten, but heaven wanted you forever seen. You are not their rumor, you are God's revelation. Ninth, you no longer seek revenge because your life is the revenge. You became the living consequence. You didn't have to fight back, shout back, or prove them wrong. Your healing did it for you. Your peace became your protest. Your success became your sentence. Every breath you take now declares what you meant for harm. God turned to good. They built their comfort on your collapse, thinking you'd never rise. They told stories that made you the villain just so they could feel righteous. But your resurrection rewrote every lie. You didn't come back angry, you came back anointed. You didn't clap back, you came back calm. You didn't rise to hurt them, you rose to heal. And that's what makes your victory divine. It's silent, sacred, and unstoppable. They expected you to break, to become bitter, to chase vengeance. But instead, you built yourself. You turned pain into power, heartbreak into honor, loss into legacy. You grew, and your growth became the judgment. You didn't need to lift a finger, God lifted you. And now your elevation is their education. Your peace disturbs them more than your pain ever did, because your stillness shows them what they lost. They can't reach your frequency anymore. The punishment isn't your anger, it's your absence. You didn't block them out of spite, you simply stopped living in the chaos they created. You stopped feeding the fire, and the fire went out. That's divine justice. It doesn't shout, it shows. It lets your life preach what your lips no longer need to say. Every time they see you smile, it reminds them they can't take credit for your peace. Every blessing that lands in your lap is a reminder that their betrayal couldn't block destiny. They misjudged your silence, not knowing silence was your shield. They mistook your patience for defeat, not realizing it was prophecy. Preparing its moment, you didn't retaliate. You resurrected. You rose from the ruins with grace still intact. You learned that forgiveness doesn't mean re-entry. You let go not to free them, but to free yourself. And that's when the real power came, when you stopped trying to control outcomes and let peace lead instead. Now your very existence exposes them. You don't speak against them. Your glow speaks louder. You don't wish them harm. Your happiness convicts them. Every new level of your life echoes through the atmosphere. No weapon formed against me prospered. You are the walking proof that grace doesn't need vengeance, it needs vision. They're haunted by how well you've healed. Not because you hurt them back, but because you refuse to. Nothing terrifies the guilty like the grace of the one they wronged. You moved on without bitterness, and that peace became their mirror. Every time they remember what they did, they see the difference between who they were and who you've become. They once had power because you cared. You argued, explained, pleaded, but when you stopped explaining, their control evaporated. When you stopped needing their validation, their manipulation lost its fuel. That's why they're uneasy now. They can't access you emotionally, mentally, or spiritually You've graduated from their games. The truth is they can't touch you because they no longer speak the language of your frequency. You've evolved beyond the noise. Their punishment is permanent disconnection from your energy. They're stuck replaying the past while you're already living in promise. Revenge is for the insecure. Consequence belongs to the healed. Revenge tries to hurt. What hurt you? Consequence simply reveals what truth was always going to show. You didn't curse them. Your peace did. You didn't expose them. Time did. You didn't chase justice. You became it. You've learned that spiritual law doesn't miss. Every action creates its echo. Every betrayal carries its own return. You didn't have to deliver their karma. You just had to stay aligned, and heaven handled the rest. What they planted in cruelty is now sprouting conviction, and the only thing they can harvest is regret. That's the real power of your transformation. You didn't grow cold, you grew clear. You're not untouched because you avoided pain, you're untouched because you mastered it. You've become immune to manipulation, too stable to be shaken, too focused to be distracted. What once wounded you now worships at your feet as wisdom. Every time you choose peace over pettiness, you shift something in the spirit. That's why they can't sleep comfortably when your name comes up. They feel the distance, the divine wall between who you are and who they pretended to be. That gap, that quiet, holy separation is their judgment. They can't walk with you anymore because your light now exposes what they refuse to heal. You've realized the most sacred form of revenge is peace that doesn't depend on closure. You stop needing their apology because you stop needing their permission to move on. You no longer live at the address where pain mailed its letters. You've relocated to purpose and they don't have the map. And here's the deeper truth. You didn't just survive them, you transcended them. You got elevated. You didn't match their energy, you mastered yours. That's divine order in motion. That's heaven's justice at work. You're no longer the victim of their story, you're the author of your own. The reason your peace feels so loud is because it carries the sound of restraint. The world expected rage, but you responded with rebirth. They expected bitterness, but you offered beauty. They expected war, but you built wisdom. That's consequence disguised as grace. And make no mistake, God sees it all. Every tear you cried became currency. Every heartbreak became harvest. Every loss became lesson. And when the time was right, heaven released your restoration. That restoration is your repayment. The life you're living now is the divine receipt stamped paid in full. So don't waste your peace chasing proof. You already are the proof. You don't need to clap back when your life is preaching louder than words. You don't need to wish anyone harm. The distance is punishment enough. They're not living in your world anymore because your world requires truth and truth repels deceit. You've moved to a higher frequency, one where grace governs and peace protects. That's not pride, it's preservation. You've become untouchable, not because you're cold, but because you're covered. So walk boldly in that peace. Let it speak for you. Let your life remain the quiet testimony that justice doesn't always come with thunder. It sometimes comes as calm. Because when you rise, healed, whole, and holy, the story ends itself. You didn't seek revenge. You became revelation. You are the living reminder that God always balances the scales. And the true consequence for those who tried to destroy you is this: they can no longer reach you. Sometimes God sends his greatest tests disguised as people. You were one of them. You weren't sent to entertain their ego or meet their expectations. You were sent to reveal their heart. You were the divine test they didn't even know they were taking. When you entered their life, heaven was watching not to see what they said, but how they treated what was sacred. You came carrying grace wrapped in humility, light hidden in flesh. You weren't loud, but your spirit carried weight. You brought peace, counsel, protection, and covering, but instead of recognizing it, they mishandled it. They judged by appearance, not by assignment. They thought you were ordinary, They couldn't see the oil on your life because they were blinded by familiarity. They treated the divine as common, and that was their downfall. They didn't realize how they handled you would determine what God could hand them next. You were never there for validation. You were there as revelation. The way they responded to you revealed who they truly were. Some honored you, others tolerated you, and some disrespected you completely. But none of it was wasted. Every interaction was heaven's way of testing their capacity for stewardship. Could they recognize a blessing when it came wrapped in flesh? Could they handle holy ground without trampling it? They couldn't. They took grace for granted. They confused patience with weakness, humility with naivete, mercy with permission. They didn't realize your kindness was a mirror showing them what real character looks like. They mocked what they didn't understand, and by doing so, they closed their own door of favor. Because here's the truth. When God places an anointed person in your path, it's not random, it's a checkpoint. Your reaction determines your reward. How they handled you was how heaven measured their maturity. Some people failed that test not because you were hard to love, but because their hearts were too small for something sacred. They didn't know that your presence was protection. Your prayers were covering their chaos. Your spirit was holding back storms they didn't even know were forming. You weren't just a friend or partner, you were an assignment. You carried oil that was meant to flow through you to bless them. But when they dishonored you, the flow stopped. They didn't just lose you, they lost what God wanted to send through you. And that's the tragedy. They didn't fail because you left. They failed because they couldn't see. They thought they were walking away from a person, but they were walking away from provision. You were the bridge, and they burned it. You were the vessel, and they broke it. They didn't recognize that mishandling the sacred is never without consequence. See, you were never meant to punish them. You were meant to reveal them. Your silence exposed more than your words ever could. Your grace revealed their greed. Your peace revealed their pride. The way they handled you revealed what they were ready for, and heaven adjusted accordingly. When you left, they thought they won. But not long after they felt something shift, the flow dried up, the favor faded, the peace disappeared. Because when you walked away, you took your frequency with you. You didn't curse them. God simply withdrew his covering from that connection. What was once easy became hard, not because you wished harm, but because grace no longer flowed there. You didn't even have to say a word. Heaven said, test completed. The moment they mishandled you, the lesson began. They'll spend time trying to figure out what changed, not realizing the answer was you. You were their open door to a higher dimension, and when they slammed it shut, they trapped themselves inside their own pride. You weren't asking to be worshiped, you were asking to be recognized. You weren't asking for attention, you were asking for alignment. But they couldn't see past their own ego to notice God was standing in front of them wearing your face. They thought losing you was freedom, but it was really the end of favor. Because where honor ends, blessing ends. God never pours where there's no reverence. You were carrying a divine current. And when they disconnected from you, they unplugged themselves from heaven's power source. That's why their peace doesn't feel the same. That's why their steps lost rhythm. They thought you needed them, but it turns out they were being sustained by what you carried. And yet you don't need revenge. You don't need to prove who you were. Time will teach what words could not. Sooner or later, they'll remember what life felt like when you prayed for them, when your presence kept things steady, when your discernment kept storms away. They'll realize too late that your departure wasn't drama, it was divine order. Your presence was the test, your absence is the answer. You were sent to show them how they treat the holy, and now they know some blessings aren't lost, they're released. Some people aren't punished, they're simply cut off from what they couldn't appreciate. And for you chosen one, this is your graduation. You've learned the sacred art of letting go without resentment. You've learned that not everyone can carry the weight of what you carry. You've learned to stop begging people to recognize what only revelation can reveal. Because when God hides his presence in you, only those with discernment can perceive it. So don't grieve the ones who failed the test. Their loss is their lesson. You did your part. You showed love, offered grace, gave wisdom, and walked with purity. When they failed to respond with honor, heaven took note and shifted you forward. That's why your life keeps moving while theirs feels stuck. Not because you're better, but because you're aligned. The real test wasn't just for them, it was for you too. You learn to recognize when your presence becomes a burden to those who can't see its value. You learn to walk away in peace, not pride. You learn that your worth doesn't decrease when someone is blind to it. You learn that sacred doesn't argue with shallow, it simply ascends. So walk boldly, chosen one. You passed your part. You stayed pure in motive, faithful in spirit, humble in power. You didn't retaliate, you released. You didn't curse, you covered. You didn't expose, you exited. That's the mark of maturity. And now heaven is opening new doors for you, spaces where your presence will be honored, where your light will be welcomed, where your gift will flow freely. Because God always replaces dishonor with destiny. They were being tested and they failed. But you chosen one. You were being proven and you passed. Twelfth, there comes a time in the life of every chosen one when the story flips. You go from being hunted to being the one hell itself tiptoes around. You become too aware to be deceived, too grounded to be shaken, too illuminated to be trapped. You used to run from the darkness, now darkness runs from you. There was a season when you were the prey, misunderstood, attacked, betrayed. Every move you made was watched, every mistake magnified. People studied you, envied you, plotted against you, thinking they could destroy you. But what they didn't realize was that God was using every attack as training. You weren't being hunted to be harmed. You were being sharpened to become dangerous. In those quiet, painful seasons, you learned how to listen without reacting. You learned how to observe without absorbing. You learned that silence can be stronger than speech. While they thought you were weak, you were watching. While they thought you were losing, you were learning. And every betrayal became intelligence, spiritual intel you stored in the vault of your discernment. You stopped responding to every offense because you began recognizing patterns. You saw the cycles of manipulation, the rhythm of deceit, the choreography of control. You realized that exposure doesn't require confrontation sometimes. Truth just needs time. And as your discernment deepened, heaven started showing you not just people's actions, but their intentions. That's when you became dangerous. See, discernment isn't suspicion, it's spiritual vision. It's when you can walk into a room and feel the temperature shift. It's when you hear what's not said. It's when your spirit detects energy before words arrive. That's the gift God gave you in the wilderness site that can't be fooled. That's why people who once manipulated you can't find access anymore. You've outgrown the bait. You're no longer reactive, you're prophetic. You no longer panic when exposed to darkness because you've seen how fragile it truly is. You don't chase explanations because revelation lives in you now. You've become a strategist in the spirit. What used to confuse you now clarifies you. What used to break you now builds you. You've reached a level where nothing surprises you because everything teaches you. And here's what the enemy fears: awareness. The moment you became self-aware, spiritually alert, emotionally stable, the game ended. The power of darkness depends on distraction. It thrives on confusion and reaction. But you've become still, focused, discerning, and that stillness terrifies them. You don't fight on their level anymore. You operate from elevation. You don't announce your insight. You embody it. Your silence isn't weakness, it's surveillance. Your calm isn't submission, it's control. You're not hiding now. You're observing. You're letting people reveal themselves, letting situations unfold, and moving only when heaven says move. You've become strategic with your peace, intentional with your energy, selective with your presence. That's why those who once chased you now hesitate. You carry authority. They can't counterfeit. You see too clearly for deception to thrive. Darkness used to hunt you, but now it hides when you enter the room. You've become too bright to be infiltrated, too steady to be swayed, too discerning to be deceived. Remember, this betrayal was your classroom. Rejection was your curriculum. Isolation was your initiation. God didn't protect you from the pain because He used the pain to teach you perception. Every person who betrayed you trained your discernment. Every loss sharpened your vision. Every heartbreak refined your instincts. You became fluent in human behavior, and that fluency became your armor. You now move differently. You no longer fall for flattery because you recognize the tone of manipulation. You no longer chase apologies because you understand accountability reveals itself through fruit. You don't argue with liars, you outlast them. You don't explain to the blind, you let the light reveal what words can't. The enemy can't read you anymore. You've gone silent, unpredictable, and spiritually encrypted. You used to be an open book, now you're a sealed scroll. Only those with divine clearance can access your depth. That's why your circle shrank. It wasn't rejection, it was refinement. Heaven doesn't let everyone close to revelation. You've learned to let your intuition speak louder than your insecurity. You've learned that sometimes the most spiritual move is not reaction but restraint. You discern motives before words form. You feel manipulation before it manifests. That's why your peace frustrates your enemies. It proves they've lost influence. And make no mistake, they feel it. The same ones who once targeted you now avoid you, not because you curse them, but because your clarity convicts them. The energy that once attracted predators now repels them. They sense the authority in your silence, the calm in your confidence, the holiness in your boundaries. You've become spiritually radioactive, untouchable to what's unclean. You've grown from prey to presence. You no longer run from darkness. You expose it simply by standing still. Your awareness dismantles deceit. Your peace disrupts plots. Your insight intercepts attacks before they reach you. That's what discernment looks like in motion. It's protection without panic. Now understand this, your evolution didn't make you arrogant, it made you accurate. You don't see people through bitterness. You see them through wisdom. You don't react to what they say, you respond to what they mean. You've learned that discernment isn't about judgment, it's about navigation. It's knowing when to engage, when to withdraw, when to stay silent, and when to speak truth with precision. That's why hell fears you now. Not because you're loud, but because you're clear. You carry a confidence that isn't ego, it's evidence. You know who you are and who you're not. You know what's yours and what's not worth fighting for. You've stopped wasting oil on things that don't produce fruit. You've stopped arguing in atmospheres that don't honor your anointing. Your silence has become your strongest sermon. It's the sound of discipline, the sound of mastery, the sound of someone who has learned that power doesn't need to prove itself, it just is. You've entered the stage of spiritual adulthood, where awareness is authority, and authority doesn't shout, it stands. Now the hunters move carefully when your name comes up. They whisper instead of roar. They sense something has shifted. They can't predict you anymore. The traps they used to set no longer work because you've stopped stepping where you don't belong. You move only by divine timing. You speak only with divine permission. You act only with divine precision. You've become dangerous not by violence but by vision. Your discernment is your defense. Your stillness is your strategy. Your awareness is your weapon. The darkness can't figure you out anymore because your wisdom is supernatural. You're not playing their game, you've changed the arena. And here's the ultimate twist. The same silence that once hid your pain now protects your power. What was once camouflage for survival has become a mantle of strength. You learn to watch quietly, to move wisely, to wait strategically, and now every demon that once hunted you must flee because discernment dismantles deception. You don't have to fight them, they expose themselves. You don't have to chase truth, it rises naturally. You don't have to seek revenge, your radiance does the work. The light in you has become its own alarm system. Wherever you go, pretense trembles. You've become mastery in motion, a living example that when awareness matures, fear reverses. You were hunted once, but now the hunters hide, because what they once pursued has become something they can't approach. You've become what they feared most, a soul awake. Thirteenth, there's a kind of peace that doesn't whisper soft lullabies. It roars without sound. It's not the fragile kind you find in comfort. It's the kind you forge in combat. You earned this peace. You didn't buy it, you bled for it. You didn't inherit it, you became it. Your peace carries memory, weight, and authority. It remembers every storm you outlasted, every night you cried but kept your faith, every battle you won on your knees. That's why it terrifies the restless. It reminds them what self-mastery looks like. Your peace is not the absence of conflict, it's the control of it. It's not running from war, it's commanding the battlefield within. It's not avoidance, it's dominion. You don't escape chaos, you dismantle it by refusing to feed it. That's what makes you powerful. You've learned that not every fire deserves your oxygen. You've learned that not every argument requires your attendance. You've realized that silence in the right hands is not surrender, it's strategy. You used to think peace was passive, but now you know it's warfare. It's not the calm before the storm, it's the calm that outlasts the storm. Your stillness is not ignorance, it's intelligence. It's you choosing to preserve your power rather than waste it, proving points. You've learned that emotional control is spiritual authority in disguise. While others shout to feel significant, you've learned to stand still and let the atmosphere adjust to your frequency. That's why your peace feels heavy. When you enter a room, it carries history, it carries healing, it carries truth. You don't need to speak to shift an environment, your stillness does it for you. People who are addicted to noise don't know what to do with that. They mistake your calm for arrogance because they can't recognize discipline when it's wearing peace. You see, chaos needs reaction to survive. Conflict feeds on attention. But you've learned the art of starving dysfunction. You don't fight every shadow because you've realized that not every movement deserves acknowledgement. You don't chase gossip because you know truth never rushes. You don't defend yourself because your consistency already cleared your name. And that's why your composure feels like confrontation to people addicted to confusion. Your stillness exposes their instability. Your peace makes their drama look small. They don't understand that your silence isn't agreement, it's assessment. You're not ignoring them. You're discerning them. You're listening for spirit, not sound. And when you stay calm while they lose control, it reveals who's actually in charge. This is the level where peace becomes prophetic. It doesn't just protect you, it positions you. It's not weakness, it's weaponry. You walk through chaos untouched because your peace is no longer circumstantial, it's spiritual. You've learned that the greatest warriors don't always draw swords, they master serenity. Because the one who can't be provoked can't be defeated. Every trial taught you this discipline. You've been through storms that trained your soul to stay steady. You faced betrayal without bitterness, loss without collapse, and temptation without surrender. You know what it's like to stand in fire and not flinch? That's why your presence unsettles people who live in reaction. They can't manipulate someone who refuses to move emotionally. And understand this, your peace didn't come cheap. It cost you every illusion you ever had about control. It required you to surrender your need to be right, to release your attachment to outcomes, to forgive without apology. It made you shed layers of ego until what remained was pure stillness. Now you live from the inside out, not the outside in. That's why your calm feels like command. It's sourced from something eternal. You've discovered that real power doesn't need to shout. True authority doesn't need an audience. When God is your validation, you stop auditioning for approval. That's what peace sounds like, a quiet confidence that says, I don't need to prove who I am. I already know. Your stillness speaks louder than any sermon. It's the sound of someone who has survived enough storms to trust the sky again. It's the language of wisdom that's been tempered by warfare. Every scar you carry became part of the vocabulary of your composure. That's why people misread you. They can't tell if you're strong or serene, but the truth is you're both. You're not detached, you're disciplined. You're not distant, you're directed. You don't isolate, you insulate. You've learned to build boundaries not out of fear, but out of reverence for your peace. You've realized that protecting your atmosphere is a form of prayer, because you can't carry divine purpose in polluted air. And so now when chaos tries to find you, it fails. When drama knocks, your discernment answers. When manipulation calls, your peace declines. You don't argue, you vibrate higher. You don't chase closure, you create clarity by standing firm. Every time you refuse to react, you remind hell that you've learned restraint from heaven. The unhealed can't stand that kind of power. To them, your calm feels like exposure. Your serenity shines a light on their turmoil. Your stability makes their chaos scream. That's why they call you cold or different. It's easier for them to criticize your peace than to confront their addiction to noise. But don't mistake their discomfort for your error. It's proof you've graduated. You've moved beyond emotional slavery into spiritual sovereignty. You're no longer governed by external triggers. You're not a puppet of pressure. You've mastered response instead of reaction. That's not avoidance, it's ascension. And that's what real leadership looks like. You lead without shouting. You influence without demanding. You shift atmospheres without speaking. Because when your soul is in alignment with heaven, everything chaotic beneath that frequency starts to quiet itself. Your peace is not passive, it's possession. It's you reclaiming your mind, your emotions, your energy from every hand that mishandled it. It's you choosing presence over panic, wisdom over worry, prayer over pressure. That's the kind of peace Jesus spoke of when he said, "My peace I give unto you, not as the world gives." The world's peace depends on calm surroundings. Heaven's peace creates calm surroundings. That's the peace you walk in now. The kind that makes demons tremble because they can't provoke you anymore. The kind that silences confusion without confrontation. The kind that says, "You can throw the storm, but you can't steal my stillness." And here's the truth, your peace has become your ministry. You don't have to preach. You are the sermon. Every time you refuse to be pulled into drama, heaven applauds. Every time you stay centered while others lose control, God whispers, "That's my child finally walking in dominion." So hold your peace like a crown, guard it like gold. Because your calm isn't absence, it's authority. Your silence isn't weakness, it's warfare. And every moment you choose stillness over reaction, you remind the world that victory doesn't always shout, it stands. You've mastered the highest form of strength, restraint. You've become a living embodiment of divine control. Your peace doesn't avoid conflict, it rules over it. And that chosen one is why you no longer need to raise your voice, because your peace already speaks with thunder. 14th, listen to me, chosen one, your very existence is a prophecy that hell tried to cancel. Before you ever spoke a word, your life was already speaking. Before you ever knew purpose, purpose already had its eyes on you. That's why the warfare started early. That's why the attacks came before the spotlight. Because darkness saw your calling before you saw your reflection. You were born to break cycles. You carry blueprints that rewrite bloodlines. You were designed to interrupt generational patterns and usher in divine order. And because of that, the enemy tried to end you before you could even begin. Every betrayal, every heartbreak, every setback was not random. It was a calculated strike against your destiny. They weren't attacking your name, they were attacking your assignment. The devil doesn't waste ammunition on the ordinary. He targets the ones carrying prophecy. That's why you've been through so much. Before most people even started, you were marked, not cursed. You were chosen, not cursed. Every strange battle, every delayed season, every silent stretch, it was all confirmation that heaven placed something in you that hell couldn't ignore. And hear this, what they called failure was really formation. What they called delay was divine incubation. What they called silence was sacred preparation. While they were laughing at your pause, heaven was perfecting your purpose. While they were calling you forgotten, God was forming your foundation. You weren't buried, you were being built. You weren't losing, you were being loaded. Because when you carry prophecy, time doesn't move against you, it moves for you. The seasons that looked still were synchronization. The waiting wasn't wasted, it was aligning. You were being matured for the magnitude of what you were called to carry. Heaven wasn't ignoring you. It was protecting you from premature exposure. You see, there's a reason your pain started before your platform. There's a reason your training came through tears. You had to learn early what others would never understand, that anointing always attracts adversity and purpose always provokes persecution. God, let the attacks happen to build armor around your anointing. The hits didn't hurt your destiny, they strengthened it. You were never fighting people, you were fighting prophecy. The enemy wasn't afraid of you, he was terrified of what would be unleashed through you. He saw the generations your obedience would free. He saw the curses your prayer life would break. He saw the ripple of redemption your faith would create. That's why the warfare started before you even had a platform, because your existence itself was already shaking systems. You were misunderstood because you were multidimensional. People couldn't categorize what heaven was still creating. You didn't fit their box because you were never meant to. You were built to break patterns, not please expectations. You weren't designed to blend in, you were crafted to stand out. And that uniqueness, that holy difference was the evidence of your prophetic identity. You don't need validation for a calling that came from eternity. People didn't call you, God did. People didn't sustain you, grace did. And when heaven writes your name into its timeline, no human opinion can erase it. Every attempt to sabotage you only accelerated your becoming. Every plot against you became the pressure that pushed you into power. And now you're walking into the season that prophecy matures. The waiting is over. The pruning is complete. The promise is shifting from word to witness. What was once whispered in secret is about to be seen in public. The time that felt wasted will now make sense because heaven's calendar has reached your name. Your life is entering its manifestation phase. That's why you've been feeling the tension. It's not warfare anymore, it's birth. You're not being attacked now, you're being announced. The heavens are moving to validate what's been hidden in you for years. You've been silent long enough. You've walked through the dark long enough. Now light is coming not because you chased it, but because prophecy demanded it. When God said your name in eternity, that sound could never be silenced. Every setback you survived proved that His word cannot return void. Every door that closed proved that your steps were divinely rerouted. Every person who left proved that they were not meant to witness this fulfillment. Because when prophecy matures, it doesn't ask for applause, it produces fruit. They tried to erase your chapter, but they never had editing rights. They tried to destroy your reputation, but they only revealed their own. They tried to delay you, but all they did was deepen your roots. Now, when you rise, it won't be random, it will be revelation. Heaven will back every step, and even those who doubted you will have to testify that God was with you all along. Understand, this prophecy is not prediction, it's blueprint. It's not a guess, it's a guarantee. When God designs a life, every detour, every disappointment, every dark night serves divine purpose. You were not fighting for victory, you were walking in one. The pain didn't cancel your destiny, it confirmed it. The opposition wasn't punishment, it was proof. You were never meant to be understood by those who only see with natural eyes. You were made for spiritual vision. That's why you didn't fit in. That's why doors shut. That's why certain people couldn't stay. Because your prophecy carried frequency they couldn't survive in. You were built for higher altitudes, and not everyone has the lungs for that air. Now the appointed time has arrived. The seed has cracked. The soil has shifted. The heavens are speaking. This is not your season of striving, it's your season of showing. You don't need to announce it, your presence will proclaim it. You don't need to promote yourself. Heaven is doing the marketing. Every closed door will open on its own hinges. Every lie will collapse under the weight of your truth. Every silent year will echo through this one divine moment of manifestation. When prophecy fulfills itself, it doesn't ask permission, it declares victory. And now that's where you stand, on the edge of revelation becoming reality. Your name is being mentioned in rooms. Your feet haven't entered yet. Your destiny is unfolding in ways even you didn't imagine. Heaven has reached your coordinates. The divine clock just struck now. So don't question the attacks anymore. Don't mourn the delays. Don't second guess your journey. You were never late, you were hidden. Hidden until the time was right. Hidden until the promise was ripe. Hidden until heaven could make the announcement. Because when God decides to reveal what he's been building, no human hand can block it. And here's the beauty, when your prophecy manifests, you won't need to explain a thing. Your peace will be proof. Your elevation will be evidence. Your transformation will be testimony. You won't have to convince anyone that you're chosen. They'll see it. Because this next unveiling isn't about your glory, it's about God's. The same mouths that mocked you will whisper your name in reverence. The same hands that pointed in judgment will lift in awe. The same eyes that look down on you will look up to see what heaven has done. Not to glorify you, but to glorify the one who called you. So walk in it, boldly chosen one. You are not emerging by chance. You are manifesting by design. The attacks didn't erase you, they unveiled you. The waiting didn't weaken you, it refined you. And the prophecy that once seemed delayed is now in motion. You are heaven's evidence on earth, proof that divine promises don't expire. You are not the echo of what was, you are the fulfillment of what is. You are the living prophecy. They tried to silence, but heaven had the final word. And the final word is this: it's time. As we come to the end of today's message, O chosen one, this is the convergence of everything you've endured, every scar you've carried, every season that tried to silence you. You didn't just survive the storm, you became the calm that commands it. You're not merely existing anymore. You're fulfilling prophecy with every breath you take. You are walking proof that divine design cannot be delayed, that purpose cannot be buried, that truth cannot be erased. Your presence now carries power, not noise. You don't need to shout to shift the atmosphere, your energy does it for you. Wherever you stand, truth rises. Wherever you walk, deception trembles. You don't have to call out what's false, your authenticity exposes it. You don't have to fight for control. You dismantle it simply by being free. Your existence now interrupts systems built on lies. You've become the divine contradiction to every false story written about you. You used to wonder why your life felt like warfare, why people tried so hard to break what they couldn't build. Now you see it. It was never about you personally. It was about what you represent, truth that cannot be manipulated. You carry a light that no darkness can edit, a calm that no chaos can counterfeit, and a clarity that no deception can outthink. That's why control lost its grip on you, because awareness broke the illusion. You are not a victim of what happened to you. You are the victory that rose from it. You turned pain into perception, betrayal into blueprint, loss into language. You no longer react, you reveal. You no longer chase closure. You create completion by walking in peace. The same peace that once felt distant now walks with you, sits in you, breathes through you. And that peace speaks louder than vengeance ever could. You've realized you don't need revenge when growth already declares the verdict. Your transformation is the testimony. Your stillness is the statement. Your progress is the proof. You don't clap back, you climb higher. You don't argue, you ascend. Every step you take now rewrites the story they told about you. Every breath you take is a rebuttal to their lies. You are the living evidence that God doesn't waste anything, not even wounds. You've learned that power doesn't come from control, it comes from release. You've stopped asking for permission to be what God already anointed you to become. You've stopped shrinking to fit narratives that never included your destiny. You've stopped explaining miracles to minds built on logic. You've stopped defending peace to people addicted to chaos. You've learned to let heaven do your announcing, to let time prove what truth already knows. You don't need to be seen to be significant. You don't need to be approved to be appointed. Your silence has become a sermon, your existence a prophecy fulfilled. Those who once underestimated you now have to watch you rise, and there's nothing they can do about it. Because what God establishes, no opinion can erase. Everything that once tried to bury you has now become the soil that nourishes your rise. Every loss became leverage. Every wound became wisdom. Every betrayal became blueprint. And now you move differently, not to prove something, but because you know something. You know who you are. You know whose you are. You know that no weapon formed against truth can prosper because truth doesn't fight, it stands. You're not standing in survival mode anymore, you're standing in completion. The storm didn't destroy you, it revealed you. The silence didn't break you, it built you. The isolation didn't empty you, it equipped you. You've walked through enough fire to carry the fragrance of peace. You've faced enough darkness to become fluent in light. And now the world feels your shift. You no longer move to impress, you move to impact. You no longer seek validation, you embody vision. You no longer react to chaos, you reign in clarity. You've stopped being moved by noise because you've become the frequency that realigns it. This is what fulfillment looks like. It's not loud, it's luminous. It's not desperate, it's divine. It's not about conquering others, it's about mastering yourself. You've learned that peace is not the reward after the battle, it's the weapon during it. You don't fight for position, you flow in purpose. Your very being is a message. Your stillness preaches, your walk prophesies, your presence declares that heaven wins. You are the answer to the question pain once asked. You are the chapter the enemy tried to delete. You are the prophecy unfolding in real time. So stop apologizing for how powerful your peace feels. Stop questioning why your growth makes others uncomfortable. You've outgrown their frequency because you live in fulfillment now, not fear. You're not competing, you're completing. You're not surviving, you're sovereign. Let this truth settle deep. You no longer need to prove, persuade, or perform. Your destiny already spoke. Your peace already testified. Your growth already declared. It is finished. You are walking justice. You are living prophecy. You are fulfilled purpose in motion. And the most powerful thing about it all, you didn't have to say a word. Finally, thank you for staying with me until the very end of today's message. If these words have inspired you, strengthened your faith, or simply reminded you of God's presence in your life, I want to sincerely thank you from the bottom of my heart. Every prayer, every like, every share helps this ministry continue, spreading light and truth to those who need it most across the world. Take a moment to like this video, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need a word of encouragement today. Your small act of faith becomes part of something much greater, helping us reach hearts, restore hope, and remind the world that God is still moving. We would love to hear from you in the comments what part of this message spoke to your soul tonight. Your words matter, your voice matters, and your faith keeps this light burning. May God cover you with His grace, strengthen your spirit, and bless everything your hands touch. Walk in peace, walk in power, and remember, heaven is still writing your story. Amen.